Hi, my name's Lizzie, and this is my persuasive speech. So I'm going to start off first with a story. When I was in high school, I was best friends with this girl, and we had gotten to a fight because she said she wanted to go on a mission trip to Africa to do something. I don't even know what. To teach English, who knows? No, I don't even think it was teach English. She just wanted to go to Africa. Um, and I remember I had been reading an article previously about that. It was an opinion piece on how these trips tend to do more harm than good. I wasn't educated enough to truly have an argument, but basically it was like one of the worst fights I've ever been into, and it's always just like stuck with me even to this day. So yeah, this is essentially what my speech is on. My speech, no, I'm gonna backtrack a little bit. So, like, at a first glance, going to an underdeveloped country to help out seems good. Like, how could that be wrong in any way? But if you take a closer look, you'll probably come to the same conclusion that I have, which is that mission trips are just modern day forms of colonization. Um, in my speech, you're gonna understand why these trips do more harm than good. You're first gonna be educated on what the term white savior complex means. You're then gonna understand the backbone, not the backbone, but like the skeleton of these trips and how they, are more self-fulfilling rather than, humanitarian. And then you're gonna hear a few examples of the bad effects and what happens to people. Yeah. Okay, so let's start. My laptop's over here. I don't have note cards, so that's why I keep going with that. So first I'm going to explain what the white savior complex is. It was first coined in 2012 by a Nigerian-American author, Teju Cole, in response to a YouTube video. He wrote a piece in The Atlantic explaining the aftermaths of this phrase. People straight up called him racist, but in the context that it was coined, he said, "The white savior forms brutal policies in the morning, founds charities in the afternoons, and then receives awards in the evening." What he's referring to is how a white person provides help is essentially like the whole cycle of a white person helping a non-white person, and in a self-serving manner. And so I'm going to introduce a poem called The White Man's Burden by Rudyard Kipling, which was written in 1899 in response to the American-Philippine War. And basically what the poem is about how America felt the need to impose their power on other countries because they thought because they were doing so successful, it was their job to help other countries. And obviously for so many reasons, that is wildly wrong and racist. And essentially these mission trips are just like modern day versions of that poem. And so Cole's piece in The Atlantic explains that people who are guilty of this complex are not inherently racist. There's no bad intentions at all, but they just help at face value. Hunger in Africa, for example. Hunger in Africa, solution, feed them. But you need to go in deeper than that to truly fix the problem. Hunger in Africa, why is there hunger in Africa? If you want to help, you need to answer those questions and offer solutions that empower a village or whatever group of people to do it on their own. So now we're going to talk about these trips themselves. You go to a country, you make connections with children or underprivileged people, you help for a little bit, you go sightseeing, you feel fulfilled, you go home, you write a paper about it, you post your pictures or whatever. It's great. And I'm not saying, like I said, that the people who go on these trips have bad intentions. I think they have the best intentions. But what I'm saying is that these trips do more harm than good because these are selfish intentions. WorldVision.org urges people to answer these questions before going on trips. Are we offering a solution to the problem? If yes, is this a temporary fix or one that tackles the root? Can the community be empowered to do this on their own? And will the solution be helpful in years to come? I went and I looked at some advertising for mission trips for college students, and I went to goabroad.com that had an article that phrased it in the worst way. It essentially was a self-serving way that made me think about my own privilege rather than tackling a root of a problem. If you want to go on a trip, you need to go with the intention of helping to make something better for years to come and make it a self-serving thing, just like the worldvision.org article said. These trips have evolved into something that aims to fulfill like a guilty conscience rather than a humanitarian thing to help world villages. So now I'm going to go into examples of how these trips can be pretty bad. The first example is a popular one. His name was John Allen Chau, and he was a missionary. He went to an island called the Sentinelese, which is an isolated island, didn't really have any contact with the modern world, and he was shot down. He went to the island to preach Christianity because he, as a privileged man, thought that he was trying to make their lives better. He truly thought that he was making lives better when in fact he was just asserting himself, a man in a position of power, preaching Western ideals. And obviously it's not true. Like I said, just because you're poor does not mean you're helpless. It means that you obviously need more help, but you're not helpless. Michelle C. wrote a blog post highlighting her experiences with mission trips. She's had good experiences. She loved them. They were just like really good for her, and she felt good about herself. But she reflected on them years later, speaking about how bad basically like these trips were because they were offering a temporary fix. She gave an example about doctors. When you think of doctors going to like a place in Africa, you think of that they're good, they're saving lives, but then they leave. So they save a few lives, yes, it's a great thing, but then they leave. You're not empowering a village to do it themselves. You're kind of playing like a mythical figure, like Santa Claus, a miracle, and then you leave, and it's just unfair, and it's not good, and it's obviously not beneficial to the country themselves. It's beneficial for the doctors, and it's beneficial for like a month, a week, whatever it is. So I just gave you a lot of information, and now I don't have a lot of time, so I'm gonna wrap it up. I explained what the white savior complex is. I talked about the skeleton of these mission trips, and then I gave you examples of real life people who reflected or didn't get to reflect on their trips. And now I'm gonna give you another story. My sister and I went to India to visit our aunt, and we went to the school, and my sister gave the girls a talk about, oh my god, I'm running out of time. I'm gonna go anyway. I don't really care if I get points off because I really like the story. And she gave a talk about menstrual products, domestic violence, and sexual violence. Obviously, we weren't there for that long, but we did educate these girls in a way that hopefully empowered themselves to create change. We gave them resources so that they could do it themselves. That right there is an example of a positive interaction between someone privileged and someone not privileged. So hopefully this is an issue that educated some that hopefully I educated you on an issue that you didn't really realize existed. Thank you.